This is Lina Gálvez, and I hope you had a very nice workshop, the second session of the workshops. We had a very, very interesting one. And remember, we still have the third session of the workshops tomorrow, so don't forget that we are all very welcome. And now we have Lina. Just before presenting her, after this, you know, we have a small break and then we have this mingle, which is dinner as well. So we hope that all of you can join us upstairs. And we will have a cultural program. And something else, those who use this lift, which is a horrible lift because it takes a long time to get up to the 5th floor, please don't forget to close the door, because otherwise the people who are waiting for the lift will never get it. This is a very old system, so just try to close the door.
The problem is on the 4th floor.
Okay.
So somebody needs to push it. If you see it
Yes.
standing open, you need
Yes,
to push
push
the
it.
door
If you
down.
use it in the 4th floor, try to push it, so be sure that the lift will leave the 4th floor.
Du kan väl säga någonting om att vi ska ta med våra ytterkläder upp till 5:e våningen.
Yes.
Så vi kommer inte tillbaka till
No. So everybody takes also their winter clothes after this session, because we are not coming back here until tomorrow. So take everything you have, because we are going to close this room afterwards until tomorrow. Good. So today we are welcoming Lina Gálvez Muñoz. And Lina, she is a professor in economy from Spain, from Sevilla. She comes from the southern part of Spain. And she has been working very much on women and the economy. She's one of the most well-known feminist economists in Spain. And she has been working in several research projects and organizing this research group, EcoEcoFem, Ecological Economics, Feminist and Development. And she was also among the founders of Gender Economy, Politics and Development Observatory, which has been one of these leading institutions within equality policies in Spain. And she's going to speak in English. And this is the second time that we have the honor to have Lina here, because she also came to our conference, the GADIP's conference last year on the economical crisis in Europe and effects on women. So welcome again, Lina, and thank you for coming.
What is on? I forgot now. Here. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll speak quite loud, I think. And I think it's good by this time of the evening. I know it's not too late, but for me it looks like too late, because in that period of the year in Seville it gets dark at 6:30. And so for me it has been already dark for a while, and my biological clock is saying to me that it's later than it is. So anyway, I thank EDME and GADIP for this invitation. I'm very glad to be here and to discuss. I will take in a sentence that Krista was saying in the previous plenary session, this idea that we lost the big picture. And it is about this big picture I'm going to talk, or is that big picture in the picture within my presentation is included. And I think this big picture is the construction of a neoliberal order that is based on mercantilization, on the financialization, and especially on the individualization of risk, and all of that obviously leading towards more and more inequalities, and especially is linked with something very important that we have already seen and discussed, at least in our role play on the trade, transatlantic trade agreement between the European Union and the United States, which is the low democracy or low intensity democracy, of this new order, of this big picture that we have been missing in a while, not all, but in a while, is always playing with his very low intensity democracy. There is a Harvard professor in economics, international economics, Daniel Rodrik, that talks about the existence of a trilemma. A trilemma is something you have to choose only two. You can't have the three at the same time. Okay, and he said globalization and democracy and national Westphalian state. So you have to choose the one you will left behind. They are not compatible, all three. I mean, if we want to keep globalization, we have to decide if we are going to keep sort of nation state, or we are going to keep democracy. Or if we want to keep democracy and our sort of national state rules and everything, we have to abandon globalization, which is not only which is not globalization in all different aspects, because we know, for instance, labor does not move freely, or people does not move freely, just as the refugees. And it's now the globalization we have is financial hyper-globalization. Capital is the only thing that moves easily, and now obviously the rules make it that easier and easier and easier, and this TEEP agreement is within that. The thing is that when Daniel Rodrik wrote about this trilemma, he was very keen on the European Union, say that, well, this is an example that if we go towards a supranational institution, and obviously we are sort of lying behind the nation state, the state, and we could go with democracy and with globalization. But if he will be just in front of me now, I would like to ask him if he still believes the same thing, and probably he would say no, because what we have seen during this crisis, and especially the end of the crisis, this post-crisis austerity world, is that the European Union is becoming more and more and more an anti-democratic sort of institutional world, let's say. And so it is clear that still we have this trilemma, but what we are sort of putting away, in my opinion, is democracy. And that obviously has very, very deep impact on gender equality and on women, because obviously everybody will benefit from democracy, but especially women. We know from our historical past, we really benefit more from democracy. So that's kind of this big picture. But I'm going to concentrate now on this global north. I mean, normally all up to very recently, we were sort of development studies were more concentrated on the global south, and but more and more we are seeing that inequality are hidden any single place, and then sometimes in the global north inequalities are rising a lot, and poverty is rising a lot, even child poverty is rising a lot. So, and this is part of this big picture of this globalized world with this very big financial capital, and elites all over the world are really taking profit of the situation, and there are a huge part of the population, even in the good part of the world, which is the global north, that are really having a worse time. And this change in Europe is especially, especially scaring, because obviously we were privileged people. I mean, for living in this sort of well-being island, let's say. But it was also a model, where a social model, where other countries or parts of the world could look at, like, there is at least this a standard of well-being and social states and so on and so forth. But this is just going down very, very, very quickly. Maybe here in Sweden you don't realize how quickly it's disappearing. But coming from Southern Europe, especially after 2010, when the European Union shifted clearly towards austerity pattern, I could tell you that we are losing our rights, social rights, and our sort of future and our well-being in a very, 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 very fast way. Okay. So probably the first thing we have to have in mind is that the economic crisis is the one we just theoretically passed. I mean, I said theoretically passed because it's true that we are growing, but it's true that many people are left behind in this exit of the crisis. And it is also true that since we have not changed anything that provoked the crisis, we are already probably close to the next financial crisis. So it's already cooking in the kitchen. But never mind. So we have to have in mind that either each economic policy, or also especially economic crisis, the one we have passed, affect differently different people. I mean, this idea that we were discussing in our role play before, it was Edme playing perfectly Cecilia Malmström, very, very good, very convincing, very good. It's a pity we have not filmed otherwise. But she was very convincing that this idea that, for instance, this deep agreement is a win-win policy. This idea that we are going to win, and the policies are good for everybody. That's a lie. I mean, this is not only regarding TEEP, but in general, because the same economic policy could have a positive impact in some people and very negative in other people. I mean, even our development policy and policy towards other countries, sometimes, like we were talking this morning about weapons export and everything, we will look to the other side because it's good for us in the sense that, well, we have jobs and all these sort of things, and we don't look the effect it's having to other people. Okay, so it's a lie to say this is a win-win, because the effects are very different depending on where those people are located. Obviously, gender is a main sort of variable, a main different, but also there are other variables that are coming into our way, as race, ethnicity, or even geographical origin, and many class, obviously, and many others. However, despite each sort of crisis situation is different, and this is something already I mentioned to you, but in the last, or developed in the last time I was here, I'm going to mention very, very, very quickly. It's always good to look to the past. And from previous crises, we have, because we have a laboratory of previous crises, because especially from the 1970s, we have had more than 100 financial crises or financial shocks in the world, when the international economic order changed from a Bretton Woods system towards a more liberalized system. We have had more than 100 economic crises, and the problem is that they don't hit the same territory or the same time, and not the same intensity. But never mind, if we look to all of them together and look to the gender effect, we found three stylized facts, which is the intensification of women's work, both paid and unpaid, not only paid but also unpaid. Faster male employment recovery, that I don't have Swedish data in my mind, but in other European countries I have now the data in my mind is already happening. Male employment is recovering and female employment is recovering sort of in a very few. And also then, obviously, and related with the two first points, we have a steps back on gender equality, reinforcing or renewing a stereotype. Obviously, we cannot say, oh, all women are better, are worse off than 5 years ago, but we cannot say the other one. Probably there are some women, obviously, that are better off, especially the one who belong to the sort of the financial elite or very qualified professions, but for most of the rest, probably they are not better off at all, and some of them are definitely worse off. And this is, sorry, I was doing the other one, not this one. This is especially true in crisis treated with deflationary policies, because these austerity policies that have been implemented in the European Union, as I said, in more depth on the European periphery, well, especially Greece has been the main laboratory for them, are not new. Are the same ones that were implemented, for instance, in Latin American countries in the 1980s, cuts in public expenditure, wage moderation, price stability. The difference now, and I think it's important for what I'm going to say later on, is that they are called austerity policies. I don't know if in Swedish they are called austerity or not, because this is in English, and also in Latin languages they are called austerity. And it is important. It is not free, the use of this word austerity. I'm going to explain myself. The word has a performative power. And austerity is something everybody understands. Of course we have to be austere with public expenditure. That's good. So everybody understands. We cannot spend money in things that are not important, whatever. But it also has this performative power that the responsibility is passed on to the individual. So we have to cut now expenditure. We have to have wage moderation because your wages were very high, because we have spent more than we had, and you have been living too well, and now we have to go back. So the responsibility is